Well, this is highly irregular, but we have feelings. Welcome to a Not Sam Wrestling emergency podcast because The Rock, the final boss, the people's champion, just went on Instagram, announced himself as the High Chief in Samoa, and teased that he is going to be on Netflix Raw on Monday. We've got feelings. We got to cover this here on Not Sam Wrestling. Literally, just as I was putting the mic down, just as I was finished putting the final touches on the Monday podcast that will be out tomorrow. So check that out here, wherever you're hearing or watching this Instagram video drops. Now, we have all been highly and wildly speculative, as rule number 2 states here on Not Sam Wrestling, that The Rock would be at Netflix Raw. That the High Chief title that we saw teased when that big Samoan Dynasty family tree went up on the big screen in Las Vegas, when The Rock was explaining the significance of Roman Reigns versus The Rock at WrestleMania 40, and Cody Rhodes came in and said, there was a little subtitle under Dwayne The Rock Johnson that said High Chief. And people said, what's up with High Chief? Well, everything counts. That's rule number 3. And The Rock's not waiting to surprise everybody at Netflix. No. The Rock is letting everybody know today that these are the facts. I mean, this guy's at the Golden Globes tonight. And what's he doing? He's waking up in the morning and he's going, let me make sure everybody knows before I do anything else, I'm the High Chief. What time period are we living through right now? The Rock, by the way, putting out videos on Instagram was one of the things that really created the emergency podcast as a staple. The Rock cutting these Instagram promos before he would show up at WWE TV. And apparently, Triple H was right on the money when he said that WrestleMania season starts with Netflix Raw, because The Rock putting out Instagram promos starts. We got to watch this as a family. We got to break this all down, okay? We go to The Rock's Instagram. This thing just popped up on my timeline. I'm scrolling through. I'm having a little D&D coffee. I'm hanging out with the children. I said, quiet, children. The final boss has posted on social, and it affects all of us. This is what I said to them, maybe. This is what the video was. Listen, look at this. Look at this. Let me get some sound on this for you.
Path, Dwayne Johnson,
The Rock,
the final boss.
Oh, love that.
And also in his homeland,
What?
The proud holder of one of the highest titles in all of Samoa.
Really?
High Chief Seuli.
High Chief Seuli.
Samoa with my family at the request of His Highness Head of State, the Paramount High Chief, Malietoa Tunamufili II, where I had the great honor and privilege of participating in a beautiful ceremony and quite
He's got the receipts.
Where
he's got the receipts. Look at him.
Upon me the High Chief
this is
title,
Young Rock. This is
High Chief
Walking Tall
Seuli.
Rock.
His words to me were, "You are a
That's
son
Rock's
of
mom.
the king.
He's got the
You are a
receipts.
son of Samoa. From this day forward, you will leave your boyish ways behind.
Boyish
And
ways.
you will take with you our Samoan culture and our Polynesian culture.
Oh my gosh.
Wherever you go around the world."
Wherever you go around the world, that says 1-6 Netflix. Did you see that? 1-6 Netflix. He says wherever you go around the world, you'll leave your boyish ways behind. You'll take our Samoan heritage with you. Because you're now a high chief in our culture. Not the chief of a tribe. The high chief that is responsible for bringing the Samoan and Polynesian culture with you where you go in all your travels. This is The Rock not only speaking for the Samoan dynasty in terms of professional wrestling. This is The Rock as a representative of Samoa and the Samoan culture. This is The Rock looking down with his boyish ways behind him and saying, no, this is not how we are going to be represented. I am not going to allow us to be represented in this way. where at WrestleMania 40, our people, our family, not only loses the main event, but then loses in the main event. See, The Rock sees that Roman Reigns and The Rock was supposed to be that WrestleMania main event, and then Cody took it away. But then the ultimate sin, potentially, wildly speculating, is Roman Reigns over here then losing that match. If Roman had won, at least the family would have been represented in a victory, if not having the whole main event to themselves, but Roman did not win. Cody Rhodes won. I mean, this is the 1-6. This has to fit like a glove into tribal combat. And, I mean, to me, it's like you're now in a scenario where Roman Reigns can definitely win tribal combat. Roman Reigns can beat Solo Sikoa. What you've done here, what is the final boss? The ultimate villain. When you're playing a video game, right? You go through this boss and that boss, level 1 boss, level 2 boss, level 3 boss, but then the final boss is the one where it's like, I thought I beat the game, but I just can't win because this guy's too hard. Goro's got 4 arms. It's impossible to do. You can't beat the final boss. Roman Reigns looking at Solo Sikoa and fighting for the High Chief. Well, that's a boss that he's got to defeat. That's a victory that he has to win, but that's not the final victory. That's not the final boss. Because declaring yourself as the tribal chief is something that is going to serve you and your tribe well. That's something that's going to make you say, yeah, I'm the one in charge of all of you, but when the High Chief shows up, well, that's something very, very different. And so what we're seeing here is that there is this potential for Roman to almost be done fighting this new bloodline. And on the road to WrestleMania, maybe this becomes more about the High Chief and the Tribal Chief. And who is the one to represent this culture in the WWE? This is a culture that's been represented by champions. You're going back to you're going back to High Chief Peter Maivia, of course. You're going back to the Wild Samoans, who the 1980s tag team division in the WWE was defined by Alpha and Sika. This was a time when that tag division was way up on a pedestal in terms of the cards that would come into town. And the Wild Samoans were the iconic team. When you talk to people of that generation who grew up watching WWF in the early, mid, and even into the late 80s, but really in the early and the mid 80s, the Wild Samoans are a name that always comes up. Hulk Hogan, when he needed villains early on, Sika was one of the people that they called upon. And then you go forward into the 90s. And who do you have? Yokozuna. Yokozuna coming in and representing that family and having, a rise to prominence that is rarely seen. You're talking about a guy who debuted at the end of 1992, wins the Rumble in 93, main events WrestleMania that April. So his first pay-per-view match is November of 92, and he's main eventing WrestleMania by April. And then when Hogan's going out, he's the one who drops the leg, beats Hogan, and carries that WWE Championship for the rest of the year into WrestleMania 10. And then you go into the late 90s and into the 2000s. And who do you have? You have The Rock. These are all iconic characters of that era. Everybody that watched wrestling in the 1980s remembers the Wild Samoans. Everybody that watched wrestling in the 1990s remembers Yokozuna. Everybody that watched wrestling in the late 90s going into the 2000s, everybody talks about The Rock. And now you go one more generation. And Roman Reigns is like, well, I'm the guy. And each one grows, right? The Wild Samoans were you start with Peter Maivia, then as wrestling is getting bigger, the Wild Samoans are there, head of the tag team division. Wrestling keeps getting bigger. Yokozuna is there, and he's the world champion. And then wrestling's getting even bigger, and The Rock shows up. And not only is he the world champion, he's this huge pop culture figure. He's hosting SNL. He goes on to become the box office giant that he is today. And as wrestling has gotten as big as it's ever gotten, who do you have? Roman Reigns. Except The Rock is sitting there going, no, each generation has to be better than the last. And I don't know that you're better. I don't know that it's time for you to be that guy. I'm reading all of that. This is all swirling through my head as I'm watching this. As I'm watching, but to me, to go forward and say, not only am I the high chief, but this is not something that we're making up. I have video evidence of becoming the high chief in the Walking Tall era. That's what it looked like to me with the buzz cut. I have receipts, video proof of the fact that the honor of high chief was 1,000% bestowed upon me. So while all of you are bickering about tribal chief, high chief is watching from afar, but he's watching. And that's what he said he'd be doing. He said, you don't know when and then the night after WrestleMania, he said, you don't know when the final boss will be back, but the final boss will always be watching. Shows up at Bad Blood, watching. Doesn't watching. What are the 1, 2, 3, boom. What does it mean? Watching. And now it says at the end of this video, I thought it was enough. I was already, when he's talking about being the high chief, I'm already sitting there going, oh boy, we got something here. Like we're saying flat out, this is not being left to mystery. But then when he says you take that with you wherever you go, and the Netflix logo shows up and it says 1/6, January 6th, he's telling you, I ain't leaving Los Angeles. I'm doing the Golden Globes. I got a suite, a nice hotel suite, or maybe he's got a place in LA. I don't know. But he's got a bed to sleep in because he ain't getting on the jet. He's sleeping in Los Angeles tonight after the Golden Globes. And he's going to wake up tomorrow. And I believe, based on this video, based on the evidence that we have presented to us, then he's going to make his way out to the Intuit Dome. And we've now got The Rock added to Netflix Raw premiere. A show that already has Roman versus Solo. Punk versus Seth. Jey Uso versus Drew. Liv Morgan versus Rhea. Logan Paul announced. John Cena announced. Now The Rock is letting the world know him too. I mean, Rock, Cena, Roman. And who knows, right? I mean, obviously, the first thing that pops into your head is he's going to make his presence known in tribal combat. Whether it's during the match so he can dictate who wins, or whether it's after the match so he can let whoever wins know that, yes, you are the tribal chief, but the tribal chief needs to acknowledge the high chief. Is he just there to get acknowledged by whoever the tribal chief is? Is he there to figure out, to decide himself who he thinks should be the tribal chief? Is he not going to get involved at all? Cody Rhodes was on SmackDown talking about what a big deal Netflix Raw is. Every time I click on Netflix, Cody Rhodes is ripping through that Netflix logo. Is Rock going to show up and say something to Cody? Say something about the gift that was exchanged. Say something about the fact that he was one of the people that was in the ring at Bad Blood when he did the 3 and made the throat cut gesture. I mean, how deep do you want to go on this? How much do you want to think about this? How much do you want the wheels to spin? We wildly speculate here. Who else does The Rock have history with? John Cena's going to be on Raw. He main evented WrestleMania with him twice. Last time we saw John Cena and The Rock together, last time we saw John Cena and The Rock have a match, it was John Cena beating The Rock at WrestleMania 29. Last time we saw John Cena and The Rock together, it was Rock taking out John Cena at WrestleMania 40. So there's even more recent history there. What about the fact that who else has history with The Rock? CM Punk. Maybe it's not Rock getting involved in all that. And by the way, who else has history with The Rock? Seth freaking Rollins. Seth Rollins was not only deeply involved with The Rock and Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes and that tag. I mean, he was part of the tag team main event of WrestleMania Night 1. But also, ultimately, he's the one that cost Roman Reigns that match with Cody Rhodes. And if what's under The Rock's skin is Roman Reigns losing that match to Cody Rhodes, I would imagine he's mad at Roman Reigns. He's mad at Cody Rhodes. But he'd also be very mad at Seth Rollins, no? Seth Rollins getting involved in family business? That can't sit well with The Rock. You know, what about the history of The Rock and CM Punk and everything that's been said between the two of them? What about that? What about the idea that CM Punk has returned to the WWE and he's the big star now? CM Punk is the guy that The Rock was when CM Punk was on his first run. Except for one thing. The Rock is still The Rock. So CM Punk returns to the WWE as the conquering hero, as the beloved superstar that fans never thought they would see again and are so happy to just have on their TV screens. But what happens when The Rock shows up? How does Punk feel about that? I don't know. The Rock being inserted in any sort of real way into the current space that the WWE is in changes everything. Again, which is why we're here doing an emergency podcast a day before the podcast comes out. And also, we'll have another emergency podcast after Raw on Netflix. There's a lot going on. We're here, okay? There's no ease into 2025. 2025 has arrived. Let me know what you think about what's going to happen with The Rock. You can leave it in the comments on YouTube. You can leave it on the Spotify comments. You can leave it in the Apple reviews. Wherever you want to communicate with me, okay? Tomorrow morning, we'll have Not Sam Wrestling 533 dropping, where we'll spend a little bit of time on Netflix Raw, talk about the fact that, you know, Netflix is around, but also we got to talk about Tiffany Stratton. Also, we got to talk about Cody and Drew. Also, we got to talk about the fact that all of this going on should not distract from we're going to get a year-long John Cena run. So we got a lot to talk about on 533. And then after Raw on Monday, I can already tell you, this will be back on because this is my Ulafala as the original and only podcast tribal chief. My Ulafala will be lit. And as of now, Megan Morant will be here. And we will immediately react to whatever is going to happen on Monday Night Raw. We are in an incredible timeline right now. Sit back. Enjoy it. Woo! What a time. We'll see you tomorrow. More Not Sam Wrestling.